What in tarnation?
I meant to do that.
Howdy folks, this is Applegeek, and welcome to my series finale reaction. This is My Little Pony Friendship is Magic Season 9, Episode 26, The Last Problem. This episode is actually essentially like an epilogue type episode that gives us a little bit of a time jump into the future and shows us how some things turned out and whatnot. When I watched this immediately following the last two episodes. I watched all three of them back to back, but I decided to cut and separate this episode out by itself into a separate reaction video for time reasons, both because that would be a ridiculously long video, as if it wasn't already, and also because I just needed some more time myself to really, think about the episode and the end of the series and the fandom and where we're going from here and whatnot, and put together a good commentary for you. So here we are, finally get to see it, just to note, I was spoiler free when I watched this, so I didn't know. I'd hoped that there would be like a time jump or something in it. I didn't know that going into this. I was spoiler free when I watched this, just to note that. And also, I was very amped up on Red Bull that I had started drinking at the beginning of episode 24, so keep that in mind as well. But anyway, that's where this is at. So without any further ado, I'll let you guys go ahead and give this a watch. So enjoy. Epilogue starting now. Oh, look at this! Just full United Nations! Oh.
I got here as soon as I could, but
time jump! Thank you!
Making peace between Abyssinians and the Diamond Dogs has not been easy.
Abyssinians? What?
That's why I picked you for the job. But I'm glad you could come.
So, what's the emergency?
Ever since I took over Celestia's school,
Our Twilight's all grown up and saved Equestria.
But now it seems my top student has missed the most important lesson of all.
What do you mean?
What?
Let's just say it'll be good to have my royal advisor and friendship ambassador by my side.
Your Majesty, she's here.
Send her in, Gallus.
Gallus, yes! Thank you. Okay, who is this?
Your Majesty. Luster, I may be the ruler of Equestria,
Luster?
but I'm still just your teacher.
Luster?
And you've been wonderful. I've enjoyed every moment at the School of Magic. But I'm just not sure it's the right place for me.
I see.
And it's not work. I could spend weeks in the library doing research. It's just that there's a lot of focus on making friends.
If that's your problem, you've come to the right place.
But that's just it. I don't want to make friends.
What?
So you'd rather leave the School of Magic than make friends?
I was hoping to set up an independent course of study. I want to accomplish as much as you have someday.
It'll be hard to do that without friends.
I'm not so sure. Friendship looks like more of a distraction than anything else, and ultimately, a waste of time.
I'm getting serious Sunset Shimmer vibes here.
I know you and your friends accomplished a lot together, but that was so long ago, and as far as
How long ago?
You rule by yourself now.
Hello, royal advisor right here.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I think it's better. Plus, if friendships ultimately fade, why even make them in the first place?
You know what, Luster Dawn?
Friendships
You're
fade.
right.
What? Dude, this is all part of her plan, but I have questions that need answers. How far in the future is this? What's happened to the main six? What's happened to everyone? Where are Celestia and Luna now? Are they in their old castle? Did they leave Equestria completely? So many questions. This is so intense. It's really warm in here. Okay.
Friendship is more trouble than it's worth? This is your top student?
Friendships take work.
The last
There's
problem.
No guarantee they'll last. They can be complicated.
Flurry
They
Heart!
can be messy.
Students!
And they never go the way you
Dear,
plan. Friendship is a hard thing to navigate.
I want to see grown-up Flurry Heart, please,
I realized
please.
it might not last forever.
In the CMCs, maybe? Oh, flashbacks. Oh, no, don't do this to me.
Pretty sure that's everything.
I'm just doing a final check, Spike.
But we did a final check of every room. Twice.
Aha!
What?
See? An issue of Power Ponies. Now aren't you glad we triple checked?
Oh.
Thanks, but I already read this one.
But did they find all of Pinky's hidden party cannons? That's the question.
Power Ponies. We're taking it.
Okie dokie.
Really, Twilight? We don't have to bring the comic. I'm not even sure how much longer I'll collect them. A lot is changing, and I am getting older.
Just because things change doesn't mean you leave everything you love behind.
Oh.
You're not still worried about ruling Equestria, are you?
No, I know it took some time, but I've never been more ready for anything in my life. Just because I'm ready to sit on the throne in Canterlot doesn't mean I'm ready to leave Ponyville.
Ah.
Fighting to save Equestria from T-Rex, Chrysalis, and Cozy Glow, I was too busy to think about it. But now it's all happening at once.
What?
Crinky.
Coronation, moving, leaving our friends.
I thought we'd all be ruling Equestria
Oh, you never got to see the coronation.
Of course we will, but it won't be the same.
Unless we'll get to see it here.
They all have lives here. We're moving away and they're not, and I can't help but feel like we're leaving them behind. What if we all just drift apart?
I guess I hadn't thought about it like that. Maybe you should talk to them. I bet they're feeling the same way.
You're right, Spike.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes talking to a good friend is all it takes.
Yep, this is about us and the fandom.
So you're not worried about how things might change with me living in Canterlot?
Of course not. Change is natural, like the seasons. That's just life on the farm.
I guess so.
Anywho, I really need to get all these boxes packed and sorted. There's a lot more work now that the folks beyond Equestria are coming to the coronation, too.
Worried?
Yeah, they're all
You're talking about the coronation.
they're all worried about it. They're just really good at hiding it from Twilight.
There's the whole rest of the party to stay on top of. Honestly, I'm not convinced Gummy really took care of the fireworks.
Oh no.
But what about after the coronation? Don't you think things are going to be different?
Well, since I'll be in charge of all the Canterlot galas from now on, I'll have to go there a lot more. So I guess that's different, but I don't think I mind.
No, of course not.
Oh. Oh.
Wonderful work, everyone. We couldn't be more ready. Josephine, if you and the rest of the doves leave now, we should all arrive in Canterlot at the same time. Eloise and Hubert, you should go too. I know it's a long way, but don't worry.
These names.
I'll bring plenty of snacks to restore your energy before we perform. Everyone else gets to ride, since the trip's too much for your little wings. We need everyone in tip-top shape for the coronation. I'm glad we got the chance for one last rehearsal. Everyone's so excited. But I can't imagine any pony's more excited than you. Moving to Canterlot, being crowned, I can't think of a single bad thing about any of it.
Not helping.
Me neither.
In 3, 2, 1, and...
Nice. Oh.
Look, Rainbow Dash, I know this is important to you, and we all want the routine to be special, but are you sure it needs to be this complicated?
Of course.
Come on, Spitfire, you got
Pull
this.
it off. Sorry, Twilight. I don't have time to talk. We've got a lot more work to do before the coronation.
Darling, change is an integral part of fashion. I myself am considering opening boutiques for non-ponies. Things must evolve, or they become stale. For example, I was just struck with a sudden inspiration to change my design for your gown by including the webs of these star spiders. They glow for a short while after they're spun. They won't have much time to weave the sash, but the effect will be dazzling.
Nice.
You see, darling, change can be fabulous if you embrace it.
Starlight is supposed to come over soon. There's a little something we wanted to give you before we leave. You know what? I think you're right, Twilight. I should take my comics to Canterlot. We can't leave the Power Ponies behind.
I don't think the Power Ponies care, Spike. Just like all of our friends.
All right, Twilight. Are you ready? We all wanted to see you off, but there's still a lot to do.
Aren't you coming on the train?
I gotta go with Big Mac so we can go over our packing list, or we won't know who gets what deliveries.
And I'm gonna meet the Wonderbolt so we can go over the routine one last time.
I'm going with Gummy. He said he knows when the fireworks display should start, but does any pony really believe that?
Oh.
And I still need to pick up food for the swans.
That's
and bats
questionable.
who flew ahead to Canterlot. If I don't get them fed, they'll be too pooped to perform.
Well, I'll be living in Canterlot alone. Might as well take the train alone, too. Bye, I guess.
Oh, you won't be traveling alone, darling. I'll have just enough time on the train to weave the stuff spider sash for your gown. But we should leave now. There's no time to dawdle if you want the coronation to be perfect.
That's the problem. You're also worried about making my coronation perfect, but I'm leaving Ponyville and none of you even care.
Oh. Okay, I was wrong. They weren't hiding it. They were just...
Exactly. You moved away. Your friends didn't care, and that was that.
That's not the whole story.
Actually, not exactly.
Of course we care that you're moving, Twilight.
I can't believe you think we don't. What could possibly make you think that?
I tried to talk to you all about how I was feeling, but you seemed more worried about what you had to do for the coronation.
It's true. I was there.
I suppose it gave us something else to focus on.
I knew you were worried about
There we
everything
go.
changing. I guess I thought if I made it seem like everything was okay, it would be.
I thought that was
Just trying to
what's
make
going
you
through her
feel
mind.
better. That way I wouldn't feel so terrible.
Before I moved to Ponyville, I didn't really know what friendship was. You've all taught me so much. I can't believe it all might be ending.
Used to wonder what friendship would be.
But when I imagine
Until
the
you all
future,
shared its
all I
magic
can
with
think
me.
about is that we won't be together. I'm literally moving away from you, and it's terrifying.
I'm scared too.
Me too. Rattled to the core.
Yep.
I wouldn't say scared.
Face. Oh, come on, Dash. Admit it.
Just because I won't say it doesn't mean I don't feel it. I'm gonna miss you so much. I just can't stop thinking about how much things are going to change. What if we don't see each other? What if we don't talk as much?
What if we don't stay friends?
Wow, Applejack's no longer crying on the inside. Oh.
But knowing you're all as upset as I am actually makes me less worried.
That's nice. But you should be more worried about missing the train to Canterlot.
Uh-oh.
Sorry I'm so late.
Hi, Starlight.
I actually thought I'd missed you. There's no time!
That gift's gonna be important.
No,
Oh.
I missed it.
Well, you can just
But maybe...
teleport there. Thank you.
We're on the train. Everything should be fine, right?
I'd worked out exactly how much time I needed to weave my star spider sash, and now I'm behind.
I hope Big Mac can figure out who gets what deliveries on his own.
Uh-oh.
I assume these contain the finest sparkling apple juice?
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Unless it's not.
Oh, the sweet apple acres applesauce for my
Oh, no, he
coronation
mixed up the
party.
applesauce and the juice.
This is the applesauce.
Mm-mm.
Yep.
Just open the crate and check
And
it.
what the snacks the doves and swans will need to perform after their long flight. I'd better find the food car.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
I need to meet the Wonderbolts. Where's the coronation team?
Well,
They left already?
They waited, but when you didn't show, they thought you must have meant to meet outside of Canterlot.
The only thing I'm worried about is Gummy handling the fireworks display.
Oh, no.
I'm sure it's fine.
Well, it could always be worse.
Never say that. That's like 3 episodes in a row they've said that.
Goodness, Twilight, are you all right?
My friends and I had a few hiccups on the way, but everything's fine now.
We really are both just so proud.
That's
of
par
you.
for the course.
If you need a moment, that's all right. It is your coronation.
Although,
Um.
it would be nice to get started. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, she can't possibly be crowned without her coronation gown.
Very well.
Okay.
Citizens of Equestria and beyond. My sister and I have.
Oh, that was the
been
big
able to
dragon
for
from
quite some
way back in
time.
Dragonshine.
But even we know that change eventually
Pretty
comes
sure it was.
to us all. And though we know it can be unsettling, it's as natural
Rose
as
and
the
Dr. Moon
rising
dancing.
and setting of the sun and the moon. Both of which my sister and I feel confident leaving in the hooves of the pony.
You look amazing.
Nice.
I almost forgot.
And so, without further ado, I give you the new ruler of Equestria. Princess Twilight Sparkle.
Sorry.
Oh!
Twilight.
Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh, this is going horribly.
Here. I know these aren't the snacks I promised, but it's all I could find.
Oh.
Well, Dash or no Dash, Twilight's about to get that crown. Wonderful, roll out! No,
Autobots, roll out! That had to be a reference. He actually did it! I knew it! I knew it! Oh, Pepsi! Pepsi and
to Twilight.
yeah, can't call it everyone's name. And that's some pretty thick apple cider. Oh.
Close enough.
Okay, I get it now. Your
What a coronation.
was such a disaster that you and your friends never really recovered, and that's why you all drifted apart.
No.
Well, you're half right.
Wait, what? Oh.
So, the coronation wasn't a disaster, and your friendships just faded away over time?
Not exactly.
Sorry I'm late, but it is so hard to find a sitter with a sense of humor for little cheese.
I would have been here sooner, but you would not believe how busy Yakistan is these days.
Maybe you can get to places on time if you let me do some of the chores instead of always doing everything yourself.
Maybe I would if you did them.
No!
Oh, sorry. We're not the
Granny's kerchief!
Discord's headed to an O&O convention where he'd be joining us.
I just assumed that since you aren't together all the time now, that we aren't friends. That's not the point of my story. It's true my coronation was a disaster.
A moment for Granny.
Well, at least the coronation is over.
That was something. I was just about to say the same thing. I know maybe it wasn't the coronation you planned, but it's good to see all of you laughing.
We wanted to give this to you before you left Ponyville, but things got a little hectic.
Since you're moving away, we thought if you missed any of us, or Ponyville, this might help. Aww.
A book of memories.
And we all chipped in some.
How much things change, you'll always have this to look back on.
I love it. Thank you so much. But I don't want to only look back. Obviously, the coronation wasn't perfect, but that doesn't matter. It's our relationships that really count, and we have to maintain them.
But now that we'll be living in different places, I'm not exactly sure how.
I am. I suggest we meet once a moon. In fact, my first royal decree as ruler of Equestria is to establish this Council of Friendship.
Once a yeah, I called it! It's the Twilight and the Council of Friendship, word for word!
We always knew that whatever adversity you faced, you and your friends would find your way through it together.
We know Equestria is in the perfect hooves with you and your friends looking out for it. And while we'll always be here if you need us, it's time for us to be on our way.
Where?
Leaving?
We hope you'll come and visit us in Silver Shoals.
But now it's
Silver
time
Shoals,
for you
okay.
to rule on your own. You're all more than capable.
Thank you for everything.
So, even though everything changed, and you moved away from your friends, you didn't grow apart? And this is the Council of Friendship. That's what you're all doing here?
Duh, this time every moon.
What she means
How long is the moon?
this is how we've been ruling together.
And how we've continued to face every problem and threat to Equestria over the years. But mostly, it's how we keep in touch. No matter how busy life gets.
Sometimes friendships can be hard, and it takes work to maintain them. But without friends, things can be a lot harder.
I never thought about friendship being something to work at, and I don't mind work.
I guess if they don't have to fade away, maybe making friends isn't the waste of time I thought. But I've been so focused on my studies, I wouldn't know where to start.
That's all right, because I know exactly where to send you.
When I started out,
Down to Ponyville.
I thought I knew all that I needed, didn't know what to expect. But when my walls came
I have chills.
down, I saw the truth. All along something was missing, and I think you'll see it too. This is where the magic happens. This is where the magic
Fire Pom Pom.
lives.
Derpy.
Our friendships weave together stronger. The bonds grow deeper, lasting longer. And the greatest spell you'll know is how the magic of friendship grows. And no matter how much time goes by, the party will still be here with some fun new things to try.
Yes!
Big adventures waiting, obviously.
You can see this, the other
Long as
students.
we're still here
Hey, yes, she's the leader of the Wonderbolts now. Hey.
we'll be flying happily. This is where the
The students are professors now.
This is where the magic lives.
Silver Street, all grown up. The seems yes, 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 they're professor. Yes, Karen. What was that? Like an owl thing?
What the magic of friendship gives. And it's something
Oh, please give me this. Do they have a little one?
down to generations yet.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
And we'll never stop
Yuna!
believing in the generosity
Sampar!
of the friendships we've won. And because the love that I feel for every single living creature is something that is real, friendship happens so naturally. Oh, and how I used to wonder
My heart can't take this.
what friendship could be. This is where the magic happens. This is where the magic lives. Our friendships weave together stronger.
Daring to an equivalent. Everyone. Oh.
And the greatest spell you'll know.
Everyone. Sunset Shimmer!
How the magic of friendship grows.
Yes! Yes! Close the book! Yes! Yes! Yes!
This is where
The torch has been passed. It's up to us now. We are the Council of Friendship. Spread the word. The conventions are our annual meetup to renew our friendships and make new ones and keep this going. This fandom is never going to die. Better not say any more. Stay tuned, guys. I'm going to be back for probably one of my longest commentaries ever. Stay tuned. So, here we are at the end of an era. The final theme song has been played. the final credits have rolled, and now we face a future that will have no more new animated episodes of Generation 4 of My Little Pony. For some of you, this is indeed a very scary future full of unknowns. The show and the fandom surrounding it has been a place of refuge for many of you, a place where you can feel comfortable amongst friends, and now you're afraid that that safe environment may be disappearing. This fear is understandable and not entirely unfounded either, because I guarantee you that things will change for you. This is because change is one of the few constants in our lives. Nothing in this world lasts forever. Twilight herself experienced this fear as she was packing up to permanently move back to Canterlot. She was afraid that everything was going to change, and not necessarily for the better. But as scary as this is a good thing. Because if everything stayed the same in our lives, we would never be challenged to learn and grow and experience new things and explore new opportunities. This is an important lesson that this very show has taught us multiple times in multiple different ways. Look at how many times Twilight's entire world got completely turned upside down. First when she was sent down to live in Ponyville, then when she became a princess, then when she took on the responsibility of starting and running the School of Friendship, and then becoming the full ruler of Equestria itself. If she had just stayed in the comfort of her library in Canterlot way back in the beginning, she never would have achieved any of the great accomplishments that she has, and Equestria and the world around it would arguably be in a much darker place than it is right now. And this is just one example of how right now, more than ever, we should be taking lessons of this show to heart and doing our best to live them out. You know, in a way, this show has been like a teacher in school that does his or her best to teach us important lessons that will benefit us in the life we have ahead. All the teacher can do is hope that they've taught us well in the time that they had with us, and that we'll retain what we have learned and be able to use that to our benefit as we progress through life. Even though the School of Friendship didn't appear in the series itself until recently in Season 8, this entire show has essentially been our own School of Friendship for the whole time that we've been watching it, and now it's our graduation day. Whether we feel like we're ready or not, it's now up to us to take what we have learned and use it to try and create a better future, both for ourselves and everyone around us. This last episode, The Last Problem, succeeded in highlighting this very point for us. It shows just exactly how the cycle of learning continues on in new generations, and how important it is that we do our best to pass on what we've learned to the future generations, to try and make sure that they do not repeat the same mistakes that we have made over and over again. And honestly, we ourselves can even continue to keep making the same mistakes over and over if we're not careful and don't remind ourselves of these lessons periodically. We saw this firsthand with Elder Princess Twilight in this episode. Right out of the gate, she basically admitted that since she took over teaching magic at Celestia's School for Gifted Unicorns, that she essentially failed to continue putting enough emphasis on the friendship lessons. I mean, she had some, but apparently not enough, as evidenced by the fact that her top student was now rejecting the very idea that friendship was in any way a worthwhile endeavor. This is, of course, very reminiscent of both her own experiences as well as those of Sunset Shimmer. Thankfully, she recognized this in time with Luster to do something about it before Luster turned into another Sunset Shimmer case. Like I've said before, nobody is perfect, and we all make mistakes, and we also all forget sometimes, and need reminders to steer us back on course. This is why I've never really had much of a problem with repetitive lessons in this show for characters that learn the same things over and over, because the fact that they occasionally need reminders about things they've technically already learned is highly reflective of how our lives work in real life. And Luster is also a great example of why it's so important that we strive to continually each other about the values of friendship, because it's very easy for those who have not experienced it for themselves to misjudge and dismiss it as worthless and not worth the effort. as I've mentioned before, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to truly see all the ripple effects of our own actions in the world around us. And if it's that hard for us to see, it's just that much harder for an outside observer to see. From Luster's perspective, Twilight's friendships had faded away, and she was doing just fine now, ruling Equestria all on her own, and was possibly even better off without any such distractions to bother her. Because Luster had not experienced any of the trials of the past herself, she failed to realize just how big of an impact Twilight's friendships had had on the world that Luster now lives in. Obviously, she's now living in an era of peace where creatures of all kinds live together in harmony, something that never would have been possible if not for all the efforts of Twilight and her friends, and all the hardships that they have overcome along the way. She could only see the current state of the world, which looks pretty good, and was dismissive of the idea of friendship because she was young and inexperienced and couldn't see how it was still relevant in the modern era. And you know, the timing of this lesson is actually rather interesting given the recent rise of the OK Boomer trend that's occurring right now. First off, I'm clearly not a boomer. I was born in 1983, which by most definitions of the generations out there technically makes me a millennial, though I've always considered myself to be more in the Generation X crowd. That said, that's honestly irrelevant, as the whole basis of the OK Boomer trend is the idea that old people are completely out of touch with reality, and therefore that any supposed wisdom that they have to share with us is outdated, irrelevant, and not worth any consideration whatsoever. On the flip side, those in older generations often think they know best about everything, and they look at millennials and zennials and whoever and see them as ignorant and not capable of any intelligent thought, and don't give them any chance to share their own perspectives. While there are valid complaints on both sides of this conflict, to generalize either party in this manner is just wrong, because there is no such thing as any one category of people who all think or act the exact same way. In any generation, there are all different kinds of people, and it's completely unfair to dismiss all of them just because of the words and actions of a few. There is wisdom to be gained from consideration of others' life experiences, no matter how young or old they are. So please, stop the ageism, stop the blind rejection based on stereotypical factors, and start listening to one another. And that's what this fandom is supposed to be all about, after all. You don't have to agree with everything that you hear, but if you at least try to listen to each other and to understand the reasons why each of you think the way that you do, you might just gain some new insights that allow you to find common ground to bridge the gap between the old and the new. Just because an idea was formed a long time ago doesn't mean it's worthless today, and just because an idea is new doesn't mean it should be rejected without due consideration. On that note, I'd like to bring up another little side topic here, namely the new animated series known as MLP Pony Life, which the fandom is also referring to now as Gen 4.5. Reactions to the brief preview that we saw have been greatly mixed and sadly far more negative than I ever would have imagined from people in this particular fandom. And I get it, it's a significant departure from what FiM was, as it has a completely different animation art style and seemingly alternate universe versions of the characters that we know and love, so it's hard for some people to accept it. But you know, I can't help but think of how ironic it is that some of the people who are on the whole OK Boomer kick are also so strongly opposed to this new series. You know, they get a kick out of saying that old people are foolishly stuck in old ways of thinking and say that they need to be more understanding of the new generation and accepting of new ideas. But then they turn right around and themselves reject the new generations of MLP content without any due consideration, based only on what you can see on the surface. To behave like this is, frankly, hypocrisy at its finest. And, you know, it really has nothing to do even with age, as it does just blind rejection of ideas that you don't instantly agree with. Honestly, I'm rather disappointed in the fandom as a whole over this. And yes, just to point out that I'm not generalizing. I do realize there are a great many in the fandom who do not subscribe to this school of thought and are plenty willing to give the new content a chance, and for that I am grateful. But I'm just amazed at how quickly so many of us forget what we're all about. The bronies were the ones to take sledgehammers and cannons to the stereotypes and stigmas surrounding children's cartoons by building an entire fandom made up of adult men and women around a show whose original target demographic is 5 to 8-year-old girls. And many of you felt guilty of even being sucked into it at first, but the show and its characters grew on you because once you gave it a chance, you understood how good of a thing it actually is. But now another new MLP series comes along, and without having seen a single episode as of yet, you won't even give it a fair chance. Literally all you've seen is a few seconds of preview animation with a rather bizarre music video that's meant to hype up a new series and most dominantly its corresponding toy line. And to be clear, I'm not saying it's wrong to have and share initial impressions. My own impression, my first impression, was really not the greatest, especially with the Teen Titans Go vibes that were being given off in this video. But there's a big difference between voicing an initial reaction and unfairly judging the show in its entirety without having even seen a single episode. If you're uncertain about it, that's fine, but I've seen some MLP fans just viciously bashing it repeatedly on Twitter for seemingly no good reason whatsoever other than I don't like it. I have to wonder, given that there is not even remotely enough content available yet to even legitimately base such an opinion on, are these just trolls looking for attention? Or are they people lashing out because they're afraid that this new content will somehow ruin the memory of FiM? Again, I understand how much FiM means to some of you, and I understand that you may feel threatened by anything involving your favorite characters that appears to be new and different. And everyone is, of course, welcome to their own opinion on this. But until you actually see the show, I think your stance should be, let's wait and see, not, it's complete trash and I hate absolutely everything about it. The latter mentality makes you no better than the boomers that are being made fun of, and also no better than outsiders who look down on you for liking MLP in the first place without having ever even watched the show for themselves to see what all the fuss is about. And no, I am not in any way claiming that this new series will be awesome because I have no more insight into it than any of you do. I haven't seen anything beyond the preview that you have. My stance on it simply is that it looks like it could be fun and hilarious, and I'm open to seeing my favorite cartoon characters portrayed in a different manner than they have been previously, as long as it's fun and entertaining and hopefully still presented in a way where there are teachable moments, as opposed to just shallow, cringy humor that has no purpose other than to sell toys, despite the fact that there was never any question about that being one of Hasbro's primary goals with this show. All of MLP is basically a toy commercial. It's evolved into something a little bit more than that, but that was still the primary basis of all of this. You know, and I may end up not liking it. That's entirely possible. And if so, I will simply choose to not watch it and move on to something that's more entertaining and meaningful. It doesn't do any good to sit here and bash it. All I'm really trying to say here is stop being so afraid of everything that's new and different than what you're used to. You don't have to like every new thing that comes along, but unless you want to be accused of being a closed-minded hypocrite, you should at least be willing to give it a fair chance. And by the way, I feel the need to point out something very important here. FiM will always be FiM. There may be new things that come along that are similar, like Pony Life or even Gen 5. But the mere existence of those things does not in any way change what FiM was or what it meant to us. If you decide you hate Pony Life and Gen 5 and literally, the comics and stuff, all other MLP content that is produced going forward, you can always go back and watch the old Gen 4 episodes, which will still be there for you, exactly the way that they were. And no, the show likely won't be on Netflix forever, but you can also buy the episodes on DVD or from iTunes or whatever, and thus have them on hand to watch whenever you want in the future. And even if circumstances, for whatever reason, prevent you from ever watching the show again, Remember, the friendships that you made, the growth that you experienced as an individual, and the effect that you have had on the world around you, those are real things. And nothing, I repeat, nothing that anyone does or says can ever take that away from you. That is what is truly important at this point. You don't need the show itself continually in your life in order to be a good friend and have a positive effect on the world around you. You need only to remember what lessons it taught you and live those out in your own life. And I know a lot of people are also concerned about losing touch with the friends that they made in this fandom, as it's questionable how long the conventions will continue to be financially viable, especially if the fans end up rejecting Gen 5 and whatnot going forward. I know nobody wants to hear this, and this is honestly a fear that I have myself, but some friendships do fade away over time despite your best efforts. This fear was also seen in the main six, who were doing their best to put on a good front and focus on the task of preparing for Twilight's coronation, all while secretly fearing that their friendships and everything that meant anything to them was about to all change or even fall apart entirely. And that same fear is honestly in most all of us, in some way or another, and it's healthy to talk about it rather than just pretend like nothing is changing, like they tried to do. Pushing our friends away, or our friends, at least our good friends, are there to help us work through emotional turmoil in our lives. Pushing our friends away or avoiding the subject doesn't do anyone any good, because it amounts to just running away from your problems instead of facing them. Now, the world is a complicated place, far more complicated than what it is in Equestria, let's be honest. And there are many different reasons why we can get separated from people that we currently consider our close friends. And if that happens to you, I am truly sorry. It's happened to me before, and I know it will probably happen again. But as hard as it may be for you to even imagine this, the silver lining here is that you don't necessarily need to hang on to every friendship you currently have in order to be happy and successful in life. Making new friends as you go through life opens new doors and new possibilities for things to happen in your life that you never thought possible before. I know this myself because I have achieved so many things in my life that I never would have thought possible before I joined this fandom and started making some new friends. And just look at where your life was before this fandom. Look at where you are now. If you had just been content to stay with the way things were, look at all you would have missed out on. And just look what it did for the main six and for everyone who that they ever helped over these past several years, including all the other kinds of creatures that now live together in harmony. None of that would have been possible if they had just sat around trying to maintain the status quo. Bringing this back to the actual episode, Luster questioned why friendships were even worth the effort, since they seemed to fade over time. She failed to understand this because she had not yet experienced the value of friendship for herself. Twilight recognized this and decided that it was once again time to restart the cycle of training, and proceeded to send Luster down to Ponyville to start learning about the magic of friendship, just as she had so long ago. This gave me literal chills for a number of reasons, and I'm just getting chills again here thinking about it. And I was so happy to see that Ponyville was still there and still a great place. I was happy to see that so many of the younger generation of ponies that were growing up in the past are now there as adults and making Ponyville as warm and welcoming of a place as ever. And I was happy to see that Luster did come around in the end and succeeded in making friends after all, as we saw right at that final scene, just like Twilight did all those years ago, and with various different creatures too. And it was so much fun as well seeing just all the accomplishments of all these characters that we've grown to love over the course of the series. The new families, the new children, the School of Friendship flourishing under the leadership of Starlight, Sunburst, and Trixie. The CMCs and some of the young six, it looks like, becoming teachers themselves. Gallus joining Twilight's Royal Guard, Yona and Sandbar running Carousel Boutique together, and so on. And of course, seeing the collages of all the ponies and other creatures that the main six have positively affected over the course of the show was amazing. I had to go back and look more closely at those, and I got chills again as I took a trip down memory lane and remembered so many of those past episodes, some of which just seem like they're from a lifetime ago. That said, it was also a bittersweet ending, because as the cycle of life demands, some ponies have moved on from this world, like Granny Smith and Goldie Delicious, whose kerchiefs are now worn by Applejack and Applebloom respectively to honor their memory. I always knew they wouldn't live forever, but I must admit, seeing Granny Smith gone affected me a lot more than I had anticipated it would. All of my own grandparents have long since passed on, and as silly as it sounds, while watching this episode, I couldn't help but feel like I had lost yet another personal loved one. That said, my spirits were also uplifted by seeing their memory honored and seeing the hope for the future represented in the new generation. Oster was also wrong about the friendships fading between Twilight and her friends in the first place. They didn't so much fade as they did change, largely because of a conscious effort on their part to not let them die. Yes, Twilight is busy ruling from Camelot, which makes perfect sense, because moving an entire system of government to a new capital city just really doesn't make logistical sense, and the others all have their own lives and careers to tend to as well. Applejack, of course, continued to run Sweet Apple Acres, presumably having taken Granny's place as the new matriarch of the Apple family. Rainbow Dash is now the leader of the Wonderbolts, likely following Spitfire's retirement. Pinkie Pie, married Cheese Sandwich, is now busy being a super awesome mom. And Rarity is busy running a fashion empire throughout Equestria and beyond. Even Spike is kept fairly busy acting as official friendship ambassador to the Allied Nations, a job which I had originally pegged the Young Six for, but I'm honestly glad to see that Spike is finally getting the recognition and respect that he truly deserves. So, yes, you could argue that they've drifted apart somewhat, as often happens with friends as they go through life, but they weren't about to let those friendships die entirely, so they all promised to meet up on a regular basis to renew their friendships and work together as Twilight's Council of Friendship to help make sure that Equestria stays on track as a beacon of hope for future generations to come. That is now our charge. Now, obviously, maintaining your current friendships can be difficult because lots of things in life can end up separating you from your friends in one way or another. Staying in touch and renewing friendships can sometimes require a lot of effort and potentially even sacrifice. But as with any relationship, the potential rewards can be well worth the risk. Our friendships are precious, as they make us stronger than we could ever be on our own. And together we have made an impact on this world far beyond anything the creators of the show could have ever imagined. I mean, we have literally saved people's lives with this fandom, for crying out loud. Do not for 1 minute let that fact go unnoticed or forgotten about. Show or no show, this fandom will live on in us as long as we don't forget what we've learned and continue to spread the message of friendship until the end of time. As long as you all do that, I have every reason to believe we'll all be just fine. And I just have to say, I am so very happy that all of you allowed me to be a part of this. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would have ever accomplished anything like this, or that I would have had such a positive impact on others in this world. I've received so many comments from so many of you telling me how my antics have uplifted your spirits and carried you through some dark times in your lives, or how my analytical insights have broadened your appreciation for the stories and helped you to apply the lessons to your own lives. Honestly, I'm continually floored and humbled by this. I never really started this channel looking for fame or fortune of any kind. My primary desire was only to have some fun and to share my insights about the lessons with all of you in the hopes of you getting as much out of them as I was. Of course, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't also looking for some form of validation and sense of purpose in my own life, which are things that we're all seeking in one way or another in this world. But while I do enjoy the recognition I received, I've also tried to make sure that I stay as humble as I can, because at the end of the day, I'm just a regular, albeit sometimes goofy guy who likes to think he occasionally has something intelligent to say. What little fame I have would not exist without all the work that has gone into the production of this show by all the talented voice actors, the writers, editors, storyboarders, animators, musicians, producers, directors, and any other job titles I've forgotten about that we always see flying by in the end credits of every single episode. This show may have started out as a glorified commercial for Hasbro's toy division, but with Lauren Faust's vision and everyone else that helped realize that vision, it turned into something much greater. And I know for a fact that a lot of people, many of whom do not get the recognition they deserve, poured their heart and soul into the production of this show for us. Many of them have said that there's something really special about this show as compared to other projects that they worked on, and I fully believe that. And no, they didn't make a perfect show, and honestly, that's fantastic. All the animation errors, the storyline continuity errors, the flawed moral lessons, that's all part of the charm of this show. Just look at all the memes and fan art that has been created as a result of the various animation errors and all the thought-provoking, in-depth analysis that has occurred when the writers throw us for a loop on something due to an oversight or a poorly worded line of dialogue or failing to provide a crystal clear moral lesson. Don't misunderstand, I'm not trying to apologize on behalf of the show staff for those mistakes. I'm just acknowledging that nobody's perfect and mistakes happen. And I think that those mistakes have actually had the unexpected side effect of making the show even more fun to watch and analyze than it otherwise might have been. So to everyone who has had a hand in creating and producing this show, I would just like to say thank you for all that you've done for us, mistakes and all. We wouldn't be here without you, and you all deserve much more recognition for your efforts than you've gotten. And I really do think that this ending was perfect. No, we didn't get to see everything that we wanted to see story-wise or character-wise wrapped up before the finale. And you know what? It doesn't matter. I could sit here and go through a whole list of things that I would have liked to have seen done. You know, characters that I wish had come back again. You know, other story threads that are just kind of left hanging, and etc., etc. But I know for a fact that Big Jim and company tried their hardest to wrap things up for us as best as they could under the direction handed to them by Hasbro. And that includes a lot of great story ideas that unfortunately never saw the light of day. And after reflecting on this for a while, I honestly feel like while it would have been great to see a lot more of those stories, they just aren't that important. The number one thing that I care about most in any of these stories is that the message for us is a good one, because that's more valuable than any one character or any story thread. And in this case, The Last Problem gave us a fantastic final message. As the final song said, this is where the magic happens. This is where the magic lives. Our friendships weave together, stronger. The bonds grow deeper, lasting longer. And the greatest spell you'll ever know is how the magic of friendship grows. This is not referring to Ponyville or even Equestria. Where the magic happens and lives and grows is in us. Not in the show, not in the conventions, not in the toys, but in each and every one of us. And we take it with us everywhere that we go. I used to wonder what friendship could be, until you all shared its magic with me. So go out and share your friendship with others. let the memory of this show and its fandom live on forever by the works that we do. And now it's time for me to sign off of my final FiM commentary. Don't worry, I'm not saying goodbye to all of you yet, because I still do have some Equestria Girls content to finish, and hopefully a few more pieces of fan content as well, whatnot. And maybe Pony Life and Gen 5 too. I really cannot make any promises at this point. Just a lot going on in my life, and I don't know what kind of time commitments I can offer you on that. But for now, I will be saying goodbye to FiM itself. It has been an amazing 4 years since I started reacting to this show. And I'd once again just like to thank all of my fans watching who've supported me and my channel, and especially all the close friends that I've personally gained who have helped me in so many ways, whether it's providing me with spoiler-free episode sources and news, helping with quality checking of my content, keeping spoilers out of my video comments, even just acting as a sounding board to discuss the episodes with and provide me with additional insights about the stories that I'm then able to share with all of you. I've grown so much personally over the last 4 years, and I have all of you to thank for that. So thank you all so very, very much. Until next time, this is Applegeek, signing off.